what circumstances? Who's operating on the car? Okay? So, if I leave you with anything about hybrid synergy drive today and how it works, just think of hybrid synergy drive as one of these. It is a recycling bin. That's because in hybrid synergy drive, we have the ability to create power, divert power, store power, and reuse that power. So it's just like a recycling bin. We're all constantly putting stuff in here and then taking it out and repurposing, right? When we recycle pop cans, etc. So what does this recycling bin represent, do you think? I'm taking this power and I'm storing it somewhere. This is the battery. So that's why we're going to put it back here, because the battery on hybrid synergy drive is a recycling bin, constantly coming in and out. Now, one thing you're going to notice is Glenn and I are not highly paid actors. We are highly paid facilitators, yes.
Speak for yourself.
Highly paid actors, we are not. So we're going to be reading off a script. We've got about 13, 14 sessions under our belt now. We were about halfway by memory, but we haven't quite memorized it all. So we will be doing the script thing. So hybrid synergy drive combines two sources of power, gas engine, electric motor. Just like our tandem bicycle here, two sources of power. I'm going to be the front cyclist in our little demonstration, and I'm going to represent the electric motors, and I have trained lo these many weeks for this learning drive to provide power at low speed. Okay?
And meanwhile, I'll be the rear cyclist, and I represent the gas engine, and I was working out last night preparing to provide power in the scenario under higher speeds.
So, in this case, Glenn and I, we can work together, or we can work independently on our bicycle. Everything that I've said so far is true about hybrid synergy drive.
So, in contrast to some of our competitors' mild systems, which we talked about a few minutes ago, they have a small electric motor that helps the engine but cannot alone drive the wheels. So picture this scenario here with the tag-along bike being ridden by the young child. Sure enough, the child is helping, but if the adult was not pedaling, the child would not be able to drive that bike on his or her own.
So I'm going to summarize for you the equipment that we have in hybrid synergy drive. There are two electric motors, and we talked about the generator, but they're electric motors, two of them, and a nickel metal hydride battery. Because they use electricity, I'm going to represent those components.
And I represent the Atkinson cycle engine. Okay, we'll talk about Atkinson cycle later on. And as I'm wearing a shirt with a gas pump on it, I represent all things gas.
So before we get started, what I'd like to point out to you folks is we couldn't get a tandem bicycle with a clutch, so the pedals are going to be moving. What you really want to pay attention to is whose legs are moving. Okay? Whoever's legs are moving, that's what's driving the bicycle, and by extension, that's what's driving the car. Okay? So right now we're at a stop scenario, like at a stop sign or a red traffic light. As you can see on our bicycle here, Glenn and I are both at rest. The only energy or items that we're doing right now is for basic functions such as breathing.
So similarly in hybrid synergy drive, the powertrain is at rest. So even though we're sitting still, all the power we require for heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, for example, is coming from the hybrid battery.
So the key here is that neither of us right now is wasting any energy, because we're just breathing right now. I'm using stored power, just like our battery, which is my breakfast this morning. That's my stored power. So take a look at this slide and imagine that this piece of equipment showed up beside us. That is a single rider bicycle. What do you think that bicycle represents, folks? A gas car. Sole source of power. Unlike us, where we can run the HVAC system off the hybrid battery, the only way that this cyclist keeps cool is to keep on riding and stay on.
So in other words, in this scenario, the engine has to stay on to run the heating, ventilation, air conditioning system, thereby wasting fuel.
So, thanks to my use of stored power from the hybrid battery, I can do this with Glenn, keeping him nice and cool, because I know that the minute we get going and start bicycling, I'm going to recoup that energy that I'm using right now.
So to summarize, the powertrain is at rest, but all the systems, in our case, are operational.
All right, the light has changed green, or it's our turn to go, and we're starting off. As you can see, I am the only one driving the bicycle right now. That's because I am powerful enough to get the bike moving and keep it moving at low speeds and at start off.
And I'm relaxing right now, so therefore I'm not using any fuel. We'll let Matthew do all the work here. Great job, Matthew.
Thank you. Similarly, in hybrid synergy drive, the powerful electric motors alone drives the wheels at start off and at low speeds. This gets you that famous silent drive that we're known for around neighborhoods and such.
And more importantly, at this point in time, our vehicle is not using any fuel, nor is it producing any emissions. Okay, I'm ready.
Good.
I'm taking over now because now we're into a higher speed situation.
But don't think I'm lazy or anything. I'm in good enough shape, and I've got enough power stored right now where I can help out. But eventually, I'm going to start getting tired on my bicycle, but that's okay, because I know I have a second man in Glenn who can lend a hand.
So similarly in hybrid synergy drive, the motors drive the car first, but they may need some help. If they do hybrid synergy drive, they'll start the gas engines and lend some assistance. The gas engine kicks in smoothly and supplies additional power, but it may also create a surplus. If we do create a surplus, we're going to take that extra power, we're going to send it back to the hybrid battery to store it for later reuse.
The key here is that Glenn and I are working together in a synergistic and balanced way to drive the vehicle and maintain a state of charge in the battery.
Okay. You may have noticed that we built up some speed, but at some point, we'll have to slow down and eventually stop. As you can see, Matthew is taking his feet off the pedals to help us decelerate, and is now enjoying an ice-cold Gatorade, replenishing some energy.
My favorite part.
But we're still going pretty fast, so we may need to apply the brakes. So as you can see, Matthew's doing just that, and is still drinking his ice-cold Gatorade, because braking too replenishes energy.
So in hybrid synergy drive, you can replace energy in 2 additional ways. Coasting, where you take your foot off the gas pedal and just let the momentum of the car recharge the battery, but also braking, where you're sending even more power, thanks to the inertia of the electric motors, back into the battery. Remember that hybrid synergy drive is a recycling bin analogy I used. We're putting energy back in to reuse it later.
All right. This process also contributes to a lower cost of ownership, lower parts and labor maintenance costs, and lower fuel costs, as the coasting and braking energy is going to be reused or stored for later reuse.
Ready?
Ready.
All right. Go ahead, Glenn.
Sorry, thank you.
Now we're accelerating. Both of us, as you can see, we're really giving it our utmost. Remember that single rider bicycle from earlier? He's history because there's how many of him? How many of us? 2. I mean, look at us. We're sweating. Who says hybrids have no power, Glenn?
In hybrid synergy drive, Matthew and I are working at maximum power. The system is now reusing some of the energy that was stored back here for later reuse, right?
In effect, thanks to my helping Glenn out, what we're doing is
We're using the engine to power the vehicle, but we're also adding the power of the electric motor. Because the motors are helping the gas engine doesn't need to work as hard. As a result, it uses less fuel and pollutes less, both of which are good for the environment. No guilty feelings here. Like us, you're in great shape.
All right. Where's the towels?
Yeah, where are our towels?